It's exam week for college kids. Exams, tests, a very stressful task. But what if you added scary and let's not meet encounters to the mix? Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, and let's just try to pass. With these 3 terrifying stories disturbing you. Followed into my exam. This just happened this morning, and it was awful timing. I'm in exams at the moment, and had a 10 a.m. today. I left home this morning in the pouring rain to catch my train to campus. I have to take 2 trains, one on the London Overground and the other Underground. When I was on my first train, I was distracted and going over some last-minute notes on the train, so I didn't notice when this guy came on. At some point, he sat down next to me and spread his legs wide apart. I'm a pretty small woman and was sitting closer to one side of my seat, so he had loads of room, but kept managing to rub his leg against mine and seemed to be looking over my shoulder at my notes. I then realized that the train was pretty empty and there were loads of other seats he could have taken. I got spooked and said, "Excuse me," and he moved his legs closer together, away from me. He started muttering and groaning incoherently. Fortunately, I was getting out at the next station, so I got up and waited by the door. On the platform, I used my umbrella and sped walk to the next platform to wait for my next train. I couldn't see anyone easily due to the umbrella and the pouring rain. I got onto my next train, and lo and behold, the same guy came in through the same door as me. I stood, as I only had to go one stop, and he sat directly beside where I stood, and started muttering again. He was angrily flipping through a fold-up map of the Underground, but his eyes never left me. I got out at my station, put up my umbrella, and sped walk to campus. I write all of my exams in the basement of the main building, and when I entered the front door, I realized this guy was still behind me. There was no one in the foyer, so I headed to the staircase, and he started walking closely behind me and yelling gibberish at me. I half sprinted to the room where I write and walked in. He followed me in, and I immediately yelled to the TA, "He's not with me!" I had a half moment of panic that he was just another student who happened to be writing where I am. But as soon as the TA looked over at him, he pulled a hood up over his head and as far down on his face as it could go and bolted from the room. I could hear him running down the hallway and slamming the doors to the stairwell open. They called campus security to catch the guy, but he seems to have gotten away. I was quite shaken, and thankfully they let me have a bit of time to calm down before I started. Awful timing. So, creepy muttering man on the tube, let's not meet. I'd rather write my exams without heart palpitations. Creepy student in the exam hall. I must preface this story by saying I am an extremely tiny female who is about 4'11" and weighs less than 100 pounds. The actual incident happened about 4 years ago, but the memory of it is still fresh in my mind. When I moved to America for grad school, I was juggling with my newfound freedom, classes, and work. I was both a teaching assistant and research assistant at the time. There was this guy, Hassan, in my class. His behavior in class would often make me very uncomfortable. He would push his chair super close to mine so that our knees would be touching, leaning over me when the professor would do a demonstration of how equipment worked, etc. Moved his legs about and made loud groaning sounds in class. Yes, he actually did stuff like that. I would move away from where he sat, and eventually I told one of my male friends. There was little I could do at this point, as he had not really done anything. Fast forward to some point in early February 2011, I had tripped, face planted on the icy road. I was very unused to walking on ice and had injured my right hand. There was considerable swelling, and at first I thought it was just sprained, but my pinky finger was flopping about. So I figured I would have it looked at by the health services folks up at the university. I walked over to the school and had my hand x-rayed, and when it came back, it showed that the pinky was broken and dislocated. I had to have it put in a cast. I got a call from my advisor, and he tells me I have to proctor an exam at 5 p.m. They were all evening classes. I tell him I will, as soon as I get back from the surgeons, as I'm having my finger cast. I get the cast done, but I have no time to get painkillers, as I have to proctor this exam. I get to the exam hall in probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my entire life, and a huge cast. They cast my whole arm. I monitor the students and check my phone at the same time, reading Facebook updates really. This guy Hassan is constantly raising his hand and asking idiotic questions throughout the exam. It turns out he wasn't quite prepared for the test. It was time to hand in the test papers. Everyone handed theirs in and leaves, except for this man. So I walk up to him and politely remind him that the time is up and that he must hand in his paper or that it will not be graded. He refuses. I take the paper from him and place it in the pile of papers. He walks up to me and demands that I let him see the other students' papers so that he can copy. I refuse. I am getting a little scared at this point because 1, he is taller and stronger than me, and 2, I am disabled with my arm in a cast, and 3, the building was deserted as it was 7 in the evening. He moves towards the door and blocks my only exit. Move, I tell him curtly, barely disguising the fear that has crept into my voice. He dithers by the door for a bit and laughs, and after what seems like a lifetime, moves away and saunters down the empty corridor, his footsteps echoing, and finally, when I can no longer hear them, I gather up the exam papers with my one good hand and race down. At the entrance of the building, I see Hassan and 4 of his friends just standing around. They look at me, point, and laugh. Fear must have been written all over my face. I hightail it out of that building, place the papers in my advisor's office, and just go home. So Hassan and his creepy friends, let's not ever meet. Creepy old man on the bus. So, this is my first post here, and this was a fucked up experience of mine. Here we go. First, some backstory. I'm a girl. When I was still in school, I had to always take the same bus going to school and coming back home. This happened when I was in grade 11. I was 18 years old. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I had to go to school that day so I could finish my exam. So I left the house and took the bus to school. Since it was Saturday, the bus was almost empty, with the exception of some old ladies sitting next to each other and a woman on the back of the bus. I sat on the front of the bus. It was a 2-bench seat, and I was next to the window. The seat next to me was empty. The bus stopped, and then enters this old man who I had seen before around the neighborhood. With all the seats available, he sat right next to me. Okay, I thought it's okay. It's just an old, nice man, right? He said hello, and I responded back. The thing is, this gentleman spent the whole bus ride, which was about 30 minutes, trapping me next to the window. I couldn't move, and he was always shaking his arm. I was trying to push him away gently because I thought the man could have had some problems or something, but it would be even worse. At his stop, he put his hand on my leg and tapped it and said, "You are a princess. I hope you liked it as much as I did." I immediately felt grossed out about the look on his face, the way he talked, and his hand on my leg. I just pushed his hand away and said, "Isn't this your stop? Get out of here." The few people in the bus all stared at me, and the lady on the back of the bus asked me if I was okay. Turns out, the old man was masturbating the whole time. Great, just great. It made me feel completely disgusting. Then I told the lady what happened, and she told me that this man usually takes the bus always on the same stop and at the same hours, whenever the kids take the bus at the end of the school day, so that he can sit next to the kids. So basically, he's a creepy old pedophile man who masturbates to kids. And to top it all off, the ladies didn't even care. They all thought it was normal just because he is an old man and, oh, everybody knows him around here, it's normal. It's crazy.